What if the kindest version of you was never kindness at all, but a survival strategy you were praised for, because it made everyone else's life easier? That question lands hard, especially for women who have spent decades being the reliable one, the understanding one, the one who can take it. And it explains why healing doesn't always feel like a glow-up to the people around you. It feels like a threat. Because the moment you start healing, you stop being endlessly available. You stop being endlessly understandable. You stop being endlessly convenient. This is where Jung's work gives language to what you've been living. Jung would call the old version of you a persona, the socially acceptable self you built to stay safe, stay loved, stay included. It is not fake, it is incomplete. And the reason healing leads to wholeness is simple but profound. You finally stop outsourcing pieces of yourself into the shadows. Shadow work is not about becoming darker. It is about becoming honest. You reclaim the anger you swallowed, the needs you labeled too much, the boundaries you abandoned, the instincts you ignored, the voice you softened to keep the peace. Individuation, Jung's word for becoming whole, is the process of bringing those exiled parts home so you are no longer split into the nice woman on the outside and the exhausted woman on the inside. That is why people start saying, "You changed," or "You're cold now." They are not naming your cruelty. They are naming their loss of access. Because when you're no longer fragmented, you stop leaking energy through overgiving, over-explaining, and emotional caretaking. You stop begging to be understood by someone committed to misunderstanding you. You stop adjusting your truth so it can be digested by someone who benefits from your self-doubt. And wholeness is hard to manipulate because it does not bargain with itself. Let's make the distinction crystal clear. Coldness is a shutdown. It's numbness, resentment, and emotional absence. Healing is different. Healing is when you still care, but you stop donating your nervous system like it's public property. You stop treating your body as collateral for someone else's comfort. You used to send the long texts, rewrite the sentences, add the smiley face, soften the boundary, apologize for having one, then stay up late replaying the conversation to make sure you didn't ruin it. You weren't being dramatic. You were regulating the entire relationship with your breath, your patience, your flexibility, and your silence. And now you go quiet in a new way. Not the quiet of fear, but the quiet of recognition. You can feel when a conversation is a trap disguised as communication. You can sense when your words are being used as a loophole to avoid accountability. You notice the pattern before it swallows you, and you step back. You do not punish. You simply refuse to participate. Your silence becomes self-respect. Your boundary becomes a line you do not negotiate, not because you are less loving, but because you are finally loyal to yourself. That is what healing makes you. Not cold, whole. And when you become whole, you become untouchable to manipulation because there is no longer an abandoned part of you begging to be chosen. Before healing, you didn't just care a lot. You were recruited, quietly, repeatedly. You became the emotional shock absorber in every room, the one who could feel the weather change before the thunder even arrived. At a family dinner, you sensed the tension between two relatives before the plates hit the table, so you told a joke, changed the subject, or refilled everyone's water just to keep the air breathable. At work, you learned to read a manager's mood by the way they typed an email, then rushed to smooth it over by staying late, fixing problems that were not yours, and making sure nobody was upset with anyone. In relationships, you become the translator. You explained his silence to yourself. You softened your needs so he wouldn't feel pressured. You carried the emotional tone of the connection like it was your job to keep it alive. And here's the part that stings when you finally see it clearly. You weren't doing all of that because you were naturally better at love. You were doing it because your nervous system learned that peace equals safety. That is why you could walk into a room and immediately know who was irritated, who was disappointed, who needed reassurance. It looks like intuition, but it often begins as survival. Your empathy became a skill, not a gift. Your body became an antenna. Jung called this unconscious participation, and it sounds technical until you recognize it in real life. It's when someone walks in stressed and, without thinking, you start organizing your entire tone around them. You lower your voice, you smile faster, you offer solutions you weren't asked for, you try to fix the air before anyone even says what's wrong. That is the merge. Not love, not kindness, a reflex. In the early years, you learned a role and wore it like a uniform, the good one, the peacemaker, the caretaker, the one who can handle it. Jung's word for the mask we wear to belong is the persona, and for an empath and woman, that mask often becomes, I am safe when I am useful. The tragedy is that you get praised for it. People call you strong, mature, grounded, and you try to feel proud. But underneath, your real self keeps getting pushed to the back of the room. So you start disappearing inside the helping. You say, it's fine, while your chest tightens. You listen for an hour to someone vent, then hang up and feel depleted, like you just ran errands inside your own mind. You go to a friend's gathering and spend the whole time managing the mood. You laugh at jokes that sting. You make sure everyone feels included. Then you sit in your car afterward, hands on the steering wheel, staring at nothing, wondering why something so normal drained you like a storm. Nothing wrong happened. That's the point. You absorbed everything. If you recognize yourself here, ask yourself this. When did you learn that love means carrying the weight? When did you learn that being needed is the same as being valued? Jung would say that until this pattern becomes conscious, it keeps repeating like fate. And then life delivers a moment that makes you stop calling this love. A small practice you can use today. The 5-second pause. The next time someone asks you for help, do not answer immediately. Inhale slowly, exhale slowly, and silently ask, am I choosing this or am I reacting? If you still want to help after the pause, say yes with a clear limit. If you don't, try. I can't take that on right now, but I hope you find support. Those 5 seconds are how your nervous system learns a new language. It usually is not one dramatic betrayal that flips the switch. It is the slow, almost invisible pileup of moments your body remembers even when your mind keeps making excuses. The plan that gets canceled and somehow you end up apologizing. The little comment that stings, followed by a laugh and, come on, I'm kidding, while you swallow it because you do not want to be labeled difficult. The way he's affectionate when you are agreeable, then suddenly distant the moment you ask for something real. Or the friend who takes a sharp jab at you in public, then calls you sensitive when your face falls, like your hurt is an inconvenience and her cruelty is just her personality. Then, one day it happens in a scene so ordinary that no one else would notice. You are standing in your kitchen, one hand wrapped around your phone, the screen lighting up your palm. The message pops up, and your body reacts before your thoughts do. There's a small tightening in your chest, that familiar, hot-cold wave, the reflex to explain, to soften, to make it all okay. But this time, something else arrives first. Stillness. You reread the words once, twice, not like a detective hunting for proof, but like a woman finally listening to herself. You hear the tone you have been translating for years. You notice the absence of care you used to excuse. And the unsettling truth is not that you are too emotional. It is that your nervous system is done pretending. This is the real turning point. A betrayal rarely comes out of nowhere. It usually confirms what your intuition has been whispering in quiet flashes for a long time. The pain hurts, yes, but the deeper shift is that you stop gaslighting yourself. You stop asking, am I overreacting? And you start asking, why am I tolerating this? That question is not bitterness. It is a self-actualization beginning. And when Jung enters this moment, it should feel like a revelation, not a lecture. Because what is cracking is not just your mood. It is an old identity. The persona that kept you safe by being endlessly understanding starts to collapse, not because you became cold, but because your psyche can no longer afford the lie that endurance equals love. What breaks the illusion is that if you just explain better, stay softer, give more, it who will finally become safe. You see it in sharp sensory scenes. At a family gathering, the air feels too thick, plates clinking, someone smiling while they say, "You always take things the wrong way." And you realize you have been shrinking for years to keep the room comfortable. At work, you are praised for being so easy, while your needs stay last and you suddenly see the bargain you have been living in. Here is the bridge, made practical. When the illusion breaks, you stop absorbing chaos and start choosing boundaries. You pause before you respond. You let people sit in the consequences of their own behavior. You trust what you perceive, even when someone tries to spin it. Life on the other side is quieter, not lonely, but clear. You do not chase safety through over-explaining anymore. You build it through truth. There comes a point in healing when you realize you are no longer soaking up the room. You are simply standing in it. Same body, same face, but a completely different inner posture. Quiet on the outside, revolutionary on the inside. Before, you walked into a family gathering and your nervous system clocked in like it was on payroll. You read the tension like a weather report. Who was irritated? Who needed praise? Who was about to say something sharp and pretend it was a joke? Without thinking, you adjusted. You laughed a little louder to soften the edges. You asked the right questions to keep the peace. You carried the invisible weight so everyone else could keep pretending everything was fine. But after healing, something changes. You stop being a sponge. Picture a familiar scene. Your phone rings. It is the same person with the same emergency that somehow becomes your job to solve. In the past, you would feel your chest tighten and still answer. Because the old story inside, you said love equals rescue. You would talk for an hour, offer solutions, soothe their panic, then hang up feeling strangely depleted, like you just ran emotional errands. This time, you notice the hook in the first 30 seconds, the urgency, the pressure, the subtle expectation that you will carry what they refuse to face. And when you set a boundary, guilt may flicker. Quick, sharp, almost automatic. That old reflex that says, if I don't fix this, I'm failing. You let the guilt pass like weather. You do not build a home inside it. Instead of absorbing, you reflect calmly, clearly. I hear you. I'm not able to carry this for you. What are you going to do next? No anger, no lecture, just truth. That is the mirror. Jung would say this is what happens when projection stops sticking. People unconsciously toss their unprocessed fear, shame, anger, and helplessness outward and look for someone soft enough to hold it. The empath woman used to be the perfect landing place because she confused compassion with responsibility. But when she integrates the shadow, the part of her that learned to overgive, over-explain, and manage everyone's emotions to stay safe, she no longer accepts emotional packages that are not hers. She can feel what is happening without merging with it. Her empathy stays awake, not fused. You see it in small moments that used to derail you. A loaded text at midnight, a guilt statement disguised as a question. The comment, "Wow, you've really changed," was said with a tone meant to pull you back into proving you are good. Someone tears up the moment you set a limit, hoping your tenderness will override your truth. And this time, you do not scramble. You do not plead. You do not rush to fix their discomfort. You breathe. You listen. You watch the pattern instead of chasing the story. Your calm becomes sharp, not because you are harsh, but because it is undiluted. You can love someone and still let their reaction belong to them. That is the freedom. Not coldness, not distance, freedom. Because when you stop being the sponge, you finally get your own life back. The first time they call you cold, it can hit like a slap, especially if you built your whole identity around being the warm one. You are the woman who remembers birthdays, smooths conflict, and makes the room feel safe. The one who handles it. So when someone says, "You've changed," your body can react like it's in danger. Because for years you were trained to believe one thing: if I am not easy, I am not lovable. But here's the truth. Healing does not kill empathy. It makes empathy selective. In real life, it usually happens in the most ordinary, exhausted moments. You are already carrying the whole day on your back, a full inbox, a teenager's schedule, a parent's doctor appointment, dinner half made, and laundry humming in the background. Then your phone lights up. Your sister wants to talk again, which really means another 2-hour spiral where you become the emotional therapist. Your coworker pings you at 6:47 p.m. with quick question, and you can feel the hidden expectation behind it. Fix this for me so I don't have to feel uncomfortable. Your partner goes quiet after you ask for one basic thing, and the old version of you would rush to patch the silence like it's a leak in the roof. The healed version of you does something different. She pauses. She breathes. She chooses. Not because she stopped caring, but because she stopped paying for connection with her nervous system. She stops negotiating with confusion. She stops rewarding inconsistency with endless understanding. She stops donating her peace like it's a public service. And that is the moment certain people panic. They were never grieving your love. They were grieving the loss of your availability. The version of you who replied instantly. The version of you who fixed the mood. The version of you who apologized first, even when you didn't do anything wrong. When that version disappears, the old system wobbles because it was built around you being the emotional shock absorber. Jung would call this individuation in motion. You step out of the role and return to your center. Not a selfish center, a whole one. Watch how cold becomes the label the minute you start doing normal, healthy things. You say, I can't take that on right now. And you do not attach a 3-paragraph explanation. You end a call when it turns disrespectful instead of staying to prove you are mature. You stop answering emotionally loaded texts at midnight. You take a day to respond because you want clarity, not adrenaline. You choose sleep over chaos. You choose your kids and your peace over being everyone's on-call therapist. This is the sandwich generation trap. America praises women for holding everything together, then shames them the moment they stop overextending. Guilt becomes a leash. You've changed becomes a test. So answer it with truth. You can love someone and still say no. You can care and still walk away. You can be kind. You can, without being accessible to chaos. That is not coldness. That is emotional adulthood. And if you are being called cold, ask one quiet, steady question. What did they lose access to when you stopped bleeding? Because when you stop bleeding for people, the ones addicted to your overgiving will call you cold. Here is what no one warns you about when you heal. It changes the whole system around you, even if you never raise your voice, even if you never try to teach anyone a lesson. The moment you stop being the emotional foundation for everyone else, the old structure starts shaking because it was quietly built on your nervous system, your availability, your over-explaining, your ability to carry what no one wanted to carry. In real life, it looks almost ordinary. You stop answering the group text the second it arrives. You let a call go to voicemail, and your body does not panic. You tell a family member, I can't do this tonight, and you mean it. You stop smoothing over tension at the dinner table. You stop rescuing the mood. You stop translating other people's feelings into something you can fix. And suddenly, people act like you changed your personality when all you changed was your access policy. Healthy people adjust. They might be surprised at first, but they recalibrate. They ask what you need. They respect the new pace. They love you more honestly because they are finally meeting the real you, not the version of you that was always bracing. In these relationships, your boundaries do not create distance. They create trust. The connection gets quieter, but it gets cleaner. Unhealthy people escalate. They accuse, they recruit allies. They rewrite the story so they never have to face the truth. They call you selfish, cold, dramatic, ungrateful, too much, or not the same anymore. Not because you became cruel, but because you stopped being convenient. They miss the version of you who would take the blame just to keep the peace. They miss the version of you who would turn your feelings into a debate and your needs into a negotiation. And this is the lesson that sets you free. You did not lose your ability to love. You lost the pattern of self-betrayal. You did not become heartless. You became sovereign. So when someone says, you don't care like you used to, listen carefully. Sometimes what they are really saying is, you don't bleed as you used to. They are not grieving your love. They are grieving the loss of their access to your emotional labor. What they lost was access, not love. Healing did not make you cold. It made you untouchable. Untouchable does not mean unreachable. It means you are no longer available for distortion. You are no longer available for guilt disguised as loyalty. You are no longer available for chaos disguised as connection. If this feels like your story, comment, "I am awake," because the old version of you is gone, and that is the point.
If this touched something sacred inside you, don't let it fade into silence. Like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Your presence here is not just support, it's resonance. And if you feel moved to give back, your donation becomes a quiet but powerful gesture that helps keep this light alive for others still walking in the dark.